Dan, good to see you as always, and thanks for making a bit of time to come and have a chat. I know you've been super busy because you've been at this big show in LA, so I know you're running around a lot. So thank you for taking a bit of time out. So just to kick things off, tell us. Let's just start with the mission. Tell us about the mission of your business. Tell us about what you're trying to achieve.
Well, I mean, we have a grand mission, really, which is to make communication accessible to all. And, I mean, what does that mean? It's all about breaking down barriers to communication. It's
Yeah.
about, helping people that've lost the hearing or, helping people that don't speak the same language to communicate more effectively.
Yeah, I mean, what a fabulous ambition. I mean, and you've certainly bitten off a big problem because there's a lot of people on the planet that are going to need help, aren't there?
Well, 1.5 billion people live with hearing loss. It's the second largest disability in the world, and there are a huge, huge number of people. Only 18% of the world's population speak English. So
Yeah.
if you look at language as a barrier to communication, I mean, it's just a vast number of people that we hope we can help with this technology.
Yeah. So tell us, I mean, tell me about the moment when you thought this business could really become a global player. Because I know it's still a tiny business at the moment, but when was the moment when you thought we can take this technology and have a global impact with it?
I think it was when we did our first initial pilot launch. We put together some videos. We put together a. I'm now, embarrassed to even think about how bad it was app that we put out there, and said for the first time that this technology is available, and we were on national TV news in pretty much every single country in the world. That's I think the point where I thought, holy moly, this is something here. We're onto something, and this is clearly, a challenge that many, many people, live with, and something that we can help them with. So I think that was the point where it really, the penny dropped.
Yeah. And how exactly, I mean, for the people that are listening, I mean, just explain in simple terms how your technology can help such a large number of people potentially.
So, I mean, the idea came from my granddad. I was back in the UK, it was 3 and a bit years ago now, surrounded by his family, but just unable to engage in the conversation. Many people who live with hearing loss will tell you that. I mean, it can be terrible. There are many studies that, show links between hearing loss and depression, for example. And because of my background in technology, I knew the power of these kind of speech to text engines and how much they'd improved over COVID. I knew about these new augmented reality glasses that were coming out at the time and kind of had this epiphany about why can't we put subtitles on the world? Why can't we just have a pair of glasses that you put on and subtitles are displayed around you? For representing what people are saying in real time. And that is effectively what we created. And we then took it a step further to then allow real time translation of those subtitles as well. But I said it's a clear global problem that we can solve with this technology. And, I think that's why it's, perhaps something that's so applicable is because it's so simple, it's so easy to understand, it bridges cultures, it bridges everything. We're all about communication. That's by definition a global concept, I think.
Yeah. And I mean, it's one thing to have an idea, it's another thing to actually convert that into reality. I mean, tell us about some of the kind of barriers or challenges that you've needed to overcome to go from that realization that we've got something really powerful to something that is actually having an impact on lots of people's lives. I mean, tell us a little bit about that journey.
I mean, the biggest realization for me, I guess, was the mountain that you have to climb to create a product-based business. Before this, I spent 18 years in professional services, which was great. You just turn up on day one with some people, build a client, everybody's happy. But constant, got to find new projects, new projects, new projects. So with this new business, we wanted to do a product company, and we thought, wouldn't that be great? You just build something and wake up every day, and you've sold it, and you don't have to do anything. But the gulf between those two things is
Yeah,
quite
pretty significant, huh?
phenomenal. building a product company, you've got to toil and, create this incredible thing, over years and years with millions of pounds, dollars of investment, in the hope that maybe one day a consumer might spend $20 a month with you. And, for that $20 a month, they're going to expect the greatest thing the world has ever seen. Again, it's just a completely different paradigm. So, that journey to go from idea to someone, willing to pay $20 a month is a long and, troublesome journey. But when you make it, as we finally have, you do wake up in the morning and say, "Oh wow, look, people have placed all these orders, and I have no idea who they are, and they're from all over the world, and isn't that exciting?" So, it's don't underestimate the work that's involved, and you have to do it piece by piece. Again, we didn't just lock ourselves away in a room for 3 years and emerge and say, ta-da, we've been working with our users, had over 45,000 people experience this software. And, what we have today is directly influenced by the feedback that we had from all of those users over that time. So it's hard, but a satisfying journey.
Yeah. And it must be great to wake up and think that you're having a really positive impact like that. I mean, tell us about, how you as, I mean, the role of the CEO is to, of course, ultimately is to make it all happen. I mean, you can get into lots of detailed discussions about exactly what CEOs do and don't do and all the rest of it. But ultimately, it's your job to make it all happen, isn't it, really? I mean, how do you feel about that particular challenge and the involvement that it requires from you?
I mean, I can't remember who coined the term that I'm about to steal of chief everything officer.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, that's basically what the job is. You are responsible and accountable for absolutely everything on day one, from technology to sales to delivery to everything. And then, over the course of time, you get to delegate some of those things down to folks that you know, you trust that. I mean, you're still ultimately accountable for everything. So that's kind of number one. Number two, and arguably even more important, is to set the vision and the strategy for the company. Where are we all headed? And that's one of the most difficult things as a startup because honestly, you don't always know. I mean, there are several paths ahead of you, and there's pots of gold at the end of some of them. There are trapdoors on other ones, and you have no idea quite which one you want to go down. And so, you have to have a vision that's, inclusive of many different things that you might want to do. And then as you go further down the track and it becomes clearer and clearer which is the path that you want to head down, then you can get more and more crystal in your kind of strategy and vision. But that's the ultimate goal of the CEO, is to paint that picture. And that's a picture that employees look at, that's a picture that customers look at, that's a picture that partners look at, it's a picture that investors look at, and it's got to make sense and come together into one beautiful story.
yeah. And easier said than done. I mean, were there any things that really caught you off guard on that journey?
um I mean, the rate of change, which I mean sounds silly, of course, given the market that we're in. I mean, of course, but certainly over the last even 8 to 12 weeks. There's just been some incredible announcements and not caught us off guard because we knew it was all coming. But there's another famous expression that, these things always take a lot longer than you think to get going. But, once they get going, they take an awful lot shorter period than you thought,
Yeah, that's
actually hit critical mass. And I think we're at that point now. And maybe that caught us slightly off guard that it's happening now so quickly. But it's great because we were all set and we had all our ducks lined up and our story was complete and we've got all the various different pieces. So that was unexpected, but in a good way. What are some of the other challenges that we've had? I mean, just dealing with a global business is just every kind of nightmare that you could imagine under the sun, and we've had every single kind of little thing hit us that you could imagine, but none that we didn't manage to navigate through, which is good.
And of those things that have kind of hit you, as it were, I mean, what was the biggest crisis that the business faced, and what sort of impact did it have?
don't think we've had any crises yet, which is good. But I mean, again, we've had to box clever. We've had to, really examine our value proposition. There's lots and lots of, dare I say, cheap glasses that have emerged from kind of all over the place, professing to do all kinds of different things. And again, where's our real value proposition? Is our real value proposition
Yeah.
in glasses? I mean, yes, we want to have a world-class set of glasses, but the real value is in the platform and in the streaming capabilities and in the fact that you can deploy AI models all over the place. We won a grant with the UK National Centre for Accessible Transport, to help equip buses and trains with this technology, for example. The power of what we do is the transcription and the translation and the understanding. The glasses are a phenomenal device to consume that, but the real power is the platform underneath.
Yeah. I mean, I was actually thinking about things like the kind of the challenges that have been around because of the tariff stuff that's been happening recently. I mean, the impact that those sorts of things have had, because they kind of emerged pretty quickly, didn't they? And lots of people have had to change direction as a result of that. I mean, have you been impacted by those sorts of things?
I mean, it's a great shout out. And yes, absolutely, of course. The US went from being open and welcoming with both arms to perhaps not being quite so much. And arbitrary tariffs of up to 145% on goods. And given that 95% of the world's augmented reality glasses are made in China.
Yeah.
That's presented all kinds of problems. The biggest challenge is the uncertainty. It's 145% one week and then it's 55 at the moment, I think. But the de minimis has gone and then it was back and now it's gone. And there's a deal with the UK apparently at the moment, allegedly, but who knows? And I mean, this is what we're dealing with, and trying to throw darts at a dartboard that's moving the whole time.
Yeah.
But that's the world that we live in,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So
It's interesting that I mean, one of the things that interests me is that you don't view that as a crisis. You just view it as yet another set of problems to be tackled, really, which I think says something about your mindset, really, and the entrepreneurial mindset, actually.
any challenge I see as an opportunity, because if I can work out the puzzle pieces quicker than somebody else, then all of a sudden that's now an advantage to me. Again, I don't trade stocks, but you make money when the stocks are going up and down, not when they're just bumbling along. So any opportunity like this is something that we want to jump on.
Yeah.
And we've got the opportunity now, perhaps for the UK, to form a bigger part of our global strategy now. So, our current plan is that these glasses are going to be, created and sold out of the UK. So that's good for
Yeah.
UK. We'll see.
Yeah. And I mean, you've obviously got a small team. I mean, I always think one of the interesting things is how you keep your team sort of motivated during when there's such a lot of change, there's such a lot of uncertainty, things are the game is moving very quickly. I mean, how do you keep your team motivated through periods like that? I mean, that doesn't strike me as an easy challenge either.
It's not, and I mean, it's one part a clear vision, and even though the pieces are moving around a little bit, our mission remains the same. So that's an important part of it. Talking with customers, is the most magical thing for anyone, myself or any member of the team. If you're solving a real problem for a real customer, like Het National Theatre in the Netherlands, who have equipped our theatres with all of their with our technology. So now, all of their performances going forward are going to be subtitled. So an ability to go and sit in the theatre and experience our technology and go like, holy moly, this
Yeah.
actually works. This is incredible. And let's don't worry about some of the noise that's going on. Let's focus on this incredible thing that we have created. And so, it's stories from customers, consumers that, able to leave the house for the first time, or able to do this for the first time, or able to do that for the first time. And that's the real motivator. And that's what our company is all about. It's helping people. So
Yeah, yeah, it must feel very rewarding being able to do that actually. And I mean, you're in a number of different markets now. I mean, would you say your business is evolving as a result of going into different jurisdictions? I mean, is it changing the way you do things, perhaps?
I mean, the core product is the same, but the way you approach different geographies and different markets is radically different. I mean, that's been one of the biggest learnings for me. I mean, in my old business, we did UK, US, Canada, a little bit in Europe. That was about it. But you look at Japan, you look at China, you look at some of these other geographies, and just the whole way they conduct
Very
business
different, isn't it?
completely different. Just and so that's been like a huge learning for us. And as you sell to customers in those geographies as well, they just expect very different things. And there are certain geographies like China where we just go like, we probably are not ever going to sell in China because it's just too hard for us. Like it's just a completely different world. Japan, yes, but probably through partners. And again, our whole business model is built on this whole idea that we're going to work hand in hand with resellers, value-added resellers, distributors, whoever it might be, and share the spoils with them because they understand uniquely their own market and how to sell and make money in that market.
Yeah. I mean, lots of people I've spoken to have talked about the importance of finding good partners when you're going into a new country, new territory, new jurisdiction, whatever you want to call it. I mean, do you have a view on the best way to build those relationships with partners? Because it strikes me that they're quite complex, or they can be quite complex negotiations. And it's very important that you get them right, because if you get them right, that's what enables you to build a presence in that market over a long period of time. If you get them wrong, it's maybe not so good at all, is it? I mean, have you have thoughts on that process, the negotiation bit?
I mean, we're still working it out, honestly. We've got some partners that we've worked with around the world, some that are brilliant, some that are not so brilliant. I'm not sure we've got it down to a formula yet. And this is not something unique to this business. This is about, partnerships in general. But, one thing I'm a big believer in is that partnerships should be win-win. We're almost over generous with what we give to our partners, but I'm a strong believer that money talks, unfortunately, and it motivates people. And if you can put together, something where somebody else has an ability to do very well from selling your technology, then you too will do very well. So I mean that's something we've tried to do. We try to look for partners that really line up with our vision and mission. We don't want this to be an adjunct or a plaything or a fun gizmo or gadget. We want someone who lives and breathes what we do, sees this as a natural complement to what we do. People, I think, are the single most important things. That relationship that you strike. It's again one of these silly old adages, but that handshake, should be more powerful than any document you have written down. And if it's not, you got a problem straight away. So you need to find people that you can trust and you can build, real relationships with, and probably a dozen other things, but that's enough for now.
I mean, I guess if they feel they're going to get a lot out of it, they're going to stick with it when things get difficult, because inevitably problems occur and things get harder, don't they? I mean, if they feel they're going to win, they're going to stick at it, aren't they? So it helps them stick with it when times are tough, I think, your approach.
And I think partnership is a very important word.
Yeah.
We don't describe ourselves as a supplier and them as resellers generally. It's partnership. We're co-creating a lot of this stuff.
Right.
There will be scenarios that they've identified because they're experts in their particular market or sector, things that they want the platform to do. And again, HET's a great example of that, where we've co-created a lot of this functionality. And again, that's the measure of a true partnership, is accepting that things won't always quite go brilliantly, but the flip side is you've got the ability to directly influence the evolution of this thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess that sense of involvement is important to people, isn't it? I mean, people, I mean, obviously people do things for money and for reward, but they want to feel involved and engaged, particularly if it's something as exciting as the technology that you're developing, I would guess.
I think it's the single most impactful thing you can do for anyone, for employees, for partners, for customers.
Mm.
That's all anyone really wants deep down, is to feel involved and a part of something.
Yeah.
And being able as a consumer to feed back that, wouldn't it be great if the app had this kind of feature, or it really annoys me that the app does this. Is there any chance it could not? And then, in the next release, lo and behold, those things are fixed. That's incredible. That's how you build lifetime loyalty.
Yeah, yeah. And when you look, when you sort of think about the journey that you've been on, I mean, what are you most proud of? I mean, what are the achievements that really matter the most to you? I mean, you talked about quite a few things there, but if there was one thing that you're most proud of so far, I mean, what would it be?
The fact that we've got as far as we've got with a
Right.
smaller team and as little money as we have. I mean, it always amazes people that we are such a small company, that we've spent so little, and that we've created so much. So that I'm proud of, that you can launch a global brand from a front room in a place, one part of the world, and got tens of thousands of users around the rest of the world.
Yeah.
That's quite special. The fact that we've managed to create a piece of technology that can genuinely help people. As fun as it was moving service to the cloud in my old job, this thing actually has the ability to change people's lives. And of course, you're proud about that.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a very important thing to do that as well. I mean, it's a really important. I mean, people think businesses. Or I often think people think business is just about money, but of course it's not really. I mean, those things must be fabulous things to have experienced and to have led. Tell us about some of the flip side. I mean, tell us about some of the failures and the challenges that you've. Well, the failures really, and what you've perhaps learned from those failures. Have those failures happened and taught you things?
I mean, again, I don't know whether we would go so far as to say we'd failed at anything quite yet. I think the previous version of our kind of flagship glasses weren't as good as we hoped they would be.
Right.
I think we were a little doe-eyed, perhaps, that they were better than they were, and they were certainly better than what we had before. But I say the last generation we weren't as pleased with as we hoped we would be. But the new ones blow them away. I mean, I can show you a sneak peek of them here.
Yeah.
These are
Yeah.
the new Xrai AR2 glasses, which are coming very soon. But these have literally taken away all of the challenges that we heard about on the last ones. So we're pleased about those. There are, of course, always more efficient ways that we could have got to the point that we got to. There are maybe some blind alleys we went down and things we tried to build and gave up on. And funny enough, some of those we're now revisiting and picking back up again.
Right.
You like to think that it's this perfect linear path from A to B.
Never is though, is
You
it?
have to go a few little detours back and forward, and hindsight's a wonderful thing, as they said. So, knowing what we know now, could we have built it more quickly? Sure, of course. But again, is that a failure? I don't think so. I think that's just part of normal innovation and experimentation.
Yeah. And has that changed you, do you think? I mean, I know this is the second business that you've been heavily involved with. I mean, has that changed you as a leader, as a, that process, has that changed the way you would do it if you were doing it a third time, perhaps?
Would I do a product business for the third one? Probably. I
Right.
mean,
Okay.
it's hard, but you go through a lot of hard work up front, and then it does get easier, I think. And I just love scalable businesses, and it is almost impossible to build a scalable services business. I mean, almost impossible. Whereas product company is by definition, unless you do something fairly terribly wrong, by definition, a scalable business. So I've learned, of course, a huge amount and some of the shortcuts to take and things not to do. But generally, I think we did a pretty decent job, and I would certainly hope I get the opportunity again. But there are not many sort of generational things like this that come along, like, this shift from phones to glasses is sort of a once, not in a generation, but a once in a every 10 or 15 years kind of thing. So hopefully another one comes along that I get the opportunity to.
You never know. You like. What is it about the scalable piece that is so attractive to you? I mean, what is it that makes that so rewarding?
I think as the true definition of an entrepreneur is a builder of a machine, and the machine is the business effectively, and there are inputs into the business, there are outputs from the business. It's a machine that you are creating, and how good a mechanic you are and how good an engineer you are reflects in things like gross margin and EBITDA and growth and all those kinds of things. And creating a product with the right apparatus and engine around it, more input equals more output. And that, again, to me is the definition of a truly brilliant business. And again, that's almost impossible with a services company. I mean, I tried for 18 years, so you can get kind of quite close, but you still cannot
It's pretty
create
difficult, isn't it?
a
Yeah.
well-oiled machine. It's always requires manual, lots of stuff.
Yeah. Although one of the things that strikes me about all businesses is that they are a little bit of a moving feast. I mean, customer expectations only ever go one way. I mean, customers always want more things faster, better. I mean, there's always a sense that businesses have to keep evolving to keep up with what customers want and all the rest of it. I mean, that actually is harder in a product business, isn't it? Because you've got the product. I mean, the service business, well, I do it a different way, but in a product business, you've got the product. I mean, how do you manage that?
And you're absolutely right. And, we don't think about it as, we're building a thing and it's done and we're just going to now, monetize that asset. There are many companies that do think that way. I mean, there are many venture capital companies whose entire business model is we're going to buy an asset and then
Yeah.
monetize or
Yeah.
milk it, and for as long as we can get away with. That's not kind of how we think about it. We're thinking about an ever evolving product that we're building, but at any given time, we've got multiple different people buying that one same thing. Again, that's sort of the definition of scalability, is how many people can buy the same thing. And in a services business, maybe two or three people might buy that exact same thing before the next thing comes along. But in a product business, even though the thing is changing, you've got multiple people buying the same thing.
And how do you keep track of where customers are going? I mean, you talked earlier on about how much you enjoy dealing with customers and helping customers. How do you keep track of the way their expectations are changing and the impact that might have on whether they're going to buy your product or buy somebody else's product? I mean, do you have a view about that?
I mean, it sounds corny, but I mean, you talk to them. So if you go onto our website, there is a link for, I probably shouldn't say this, but hey, what the heck? There is a link for WhatsApp that most people just click on and it opens a WhatsApp call. Some people wonder what might happen if they just phoned that number. If they just phone that number, my phone starts ringing. And I have had some of the most delightful conversations
Right.
with customers who will tell you whatever you want. If you ask them, what about this company? What would you like about this? What would you like about that? And they'll just tell you again, because what they want is a sense of involvement. So that is a big part of how we keep a track of what customers want. We just ask them. And also just keeping a track of everything that's going on, which of course is easier said than done because
Yeah.
there is so many things going on. And again, to the extent to which you can, try and second guess what people want. That's what we've been quite good at so far, is kind of staying one step ahead. And, before the person has even finished describing it, you're like, it's funny you should mention that, because here's a thing we've been working on, like, our new Edge AI appliance, for example, where customers want unlimited transcription. And you're like, aha, right, we now have an answer for that,
Yeah.
funnily enough.
Yeah. And is when you think about the journey, is there anything you wish you had known when you started that you perhaps know now? I mean, tell us about that.
The amount of money required to get a business like this off the ground. Like, I think, again, we were perhaps slightly doughy eyed about how much
Yeah.
we could do with what we had. But there we go. It's the joys of bootstrap startups.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you were to offer some advice to somebody that is perhaps going to start down this journey, I mean, what would you say to somebody who is just
I'll give
thinking
them
about building a product business?
the same advice I give to everyone is run away. Don't, under any circumstances, do this. And I'm not joking. But if you can get past that and you understand that this is the most hellishly hard thing you will ever commit to, it will take over your entire life. You will think about nothing else 24 hours a day. You know, if you are prepared to accept those terms, then it's the most impactful and wonderful experience you can have as an individual because you got the ability to create something and people to use that thing, and that's an incredible feeling. But yeah, don't underestimate it. There are so many people, oh yeah, I'll just kind of do something on the side, mess about, I'll just do this, and they don't understand the level of commitment required to build an actual real business that it might be a real thing. It is one of the hardest things you'll ever do. So you're up for it. That's cool, but not for the faint-hearted.
No. And that just to pick up that point about as it were, the faint-hearted was the word you used. I mean, I always think it's the psychological challenge is do you have it's a tough gig being the
Oh, yeah.
CEO, but
Yeah.
I mean, do you have any thoughts on kind of keeping motivated, staying focused, keeping putting the bad days in perspective, because it's a bit of a roller coaster, isn't it? I mean, do you have any thoughts about that?
I don't know whether I've got any particular coping strategies, but it's a challenge. Like you're doing 10 rounds a day every day, and you're getting literally hit from left, from right. What about this? What about this? What's your answer on this? And just constant, like, feel like your head is about to explode. But I like to tick things off. Like, I'm a big fan of finishing things, like, because there's so many things floating around, and even if it's something you might think is inconsequential and it doesn't actually matter, it's at least finish something. So I like to try and do that, and again, just focus on good things when they happen. Over index on pivot and focus on great feedback from customers or success stories and things like that. And you just got to make the bad news outweigh the good news. But it's hard. I mean, again, you've got to keep telling yourself everything's going to be all right when everyone around you is telling you that the world's going to end. It's hard.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I speak to you, you always come across as so enthused and happy and joyous about what you're doing. But I know that the bad days are there's as often as many bad days as good days, aren't there? So I mean, I think there's something there about the mental resilience required to kind of push through that and to keep yourself motivated and also to keep your team motivated because you don't want them kind of on a downward roll on the roller coaster.
I mean, one thing I do try and do is only focus on things that I have some control of.
Right.
Like, you could spend all day worrying about things that you have no control of. I do the opposite. I just don't even think about them. I don't care.
Yeah.
If I'm not in control of it, whatever. Like, it happens, it happens. I'll figure it. I'll work. I'll worry about how to solve it if and when it happens. Because
Yeah.
you can just be consumed and waste so many cycles navel gazing and theorizing about what may or may not happen in the future. And frankly, it's just wasted time and energy and effort.
It's funny you say that actually, because that's exactly the thing I think. I only worry about stuff I can do something about, because if you can't do anything about it, what's the point?
Yeah.
But sometimes it's difficult to stay focused on those things I've found. So
It's so easy to worry about things. I mean, I could worry
yeah,
all day long,
yeah,
but
it doesn't help you, does it? So one last thing before we wind up. I mean, tell us about some of the really exciting things that you're doing now. I mean, we've talked quite a lot about the journey and the kind of process that you've been through to get to. Tell us about the stuff that's getting you excited about tomorrow and the stuff that's on the horizon. I mean, tell us about those things that are kind of motivating you at the moment.
I mean, one of them is this new set of glasses. I mean, for the first time in 3 years, we have a device which, frankly, is good enough to connect to our software.
Wow.
We've got a device that finally solves what we originally set out to do, which is subtitle life. This thing is 49 grams, 8 hours of battery. We now have the ability to run without Wi-Fi connectivity. We've solved the original riddle. And, rather than selling hundreds of glasses, we could be selling thousands, tens of thousands of these glasses. It's not necessarily going to be something that everyone on the street is going to be wearing right now. But, if 1% of people around the world that had lost their hearing wore this thing, that's like millions of glasses. So that I'm quite excited about, and how we can scale that through retailers and get it into the hands of the people. And the other one is, our streaming technology. The fact that we can now equip buses and trains with this technology, theatres, airports. We want Xray to start to become ubiquitous. So, I'm going to go to a venue and I've got my hearing loop and I've got my Xray. And again, that excites us that we have the ability to be able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can absolutely see why that will make you feel good and make the team feel good. And I mean, it's a great thing to have achieved. So, I mean, well done. I mean, I'm impressed. I mean, I think it's very, profoundly, could have profound effects for people's experience of the world, wouldn't it? Because it will make their life a lot easier for a lot of people. So I think that's a really great thing. So well done, Dan.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for sharing that story. I mean, it's I know because I've spoken to you on numerous occasions how hard it is, but well done, and what a great thing to have been working on, and what a great thing to have made progress on. I mean, that's a really really powerful thing.
Appreciate your time.
Good to speak to you, and look forward to catching up with you again soon. Cheers, Dan. Bye bye.
Have a good one.